And I want to be clear, this isn't religious. This Urth Ritual is not trying to push any religious agenda. The idea that, we are of the earth and we go back to the earth. That's a fundamental Jewish belief and a custom that we maintain. There can be ritual in everything if you do it with intention. I think that the younger generation wants meaning. They want death to mean something.
This is the Buried in Work podcast, where we share tips and interview experts to help you simplify estate planning and end-of-life tasks.
The idea of being buried in a mushroom suit captured the imagination of many looking for a more sustainable, earth-friendly way to return to the soil after they passed away, and the concept was popularized by the infinity burial suit, which was an approach that promised to use mushrooms to break down the body, neutralize toxins after death, and it was created by an artist, J. Rim Lee, through her company Coeo, that's Coeio. Now, their infinity burial suit was designed to help the body decompose naturally. It used mushroom mycelium and gained attention when actor Luke Perry was buried in one in 2019. Though despite the excitement, it really didn't work out as hoped. Mushrooms need oxygen to thrive, and the underground burial conditions just oftentimes don't support that. But just because you have an idea that doesn't work out doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. And today, multiple companies are exploring new approaches to mushroom burial shrouds and vessels. And we're here today with the founder of one of the most promising companies in the space. Jordanna Ibghy is the founder of Urth Ritual, that's URTH. It's a Brooklyn-based company that's creating biodegradable mycelium-based burial products that honor the body, the earth, and the rituals that connect the two. She has a great background. It's one that she spent time as an architect. She has a deep reverence for ecological design. Jordanna has turned end of life into an opportunity for environmental regeneration and personal meaning. Jordanna, it's great to have you today.
Adam, it's so great to be here. Thank you for that very beautiful introduction.
Well, hey, hire me. We'll go on the road. All right. Now, tell us a little bit about your background, how it led you to create Urth Ritual. It's kind of a strange transition to go from architecture to burial shrouds and mycelium.
Yeah, you would think that it's a strange transition, but really it happened very organically. This idea came into being actually while I was in architecture school, and I was designing a residential tower. It was intended to be a building that essentially would take all of its organic waste and recycle it. And it occurred to me in that project, while working on that project, that there seems to be a dissonance between how we view our bodies relative to how we view other parts of nature. And so I became very interested in this what I identified as a problem of death. And it seemed to be a problem because I was interested in talking about this. Why don't we consider our bodies as part of nature? Why don't we think about composting them? Why don't we even talk about death as if it's something natural and inevitable? And it seemed to be a problem because nobody wanted to talk to me about it. And so that's when I realized that this was something that needed to be talked about. And it's something that ultimately our framework around death needed to change. And all the while, I was working on a building that I wanted to make entirely compostable. And so I was investigating this material, this mushroom fibrous material that was incredibly strong, that had the compressive capacity that's similar to concrete, that was completely fire resistant, water retardant. It was a phenomenal insulator. It just had all these sort of miracle qualities. And I thought this material was the most fascinating thing on the planet.
And that material, you're talking about mycelium, right?
I'm talking about mycelium. And it occurred to me that, okay, we can use this building in the construction industry, sure. But what if we leveraged the story of this material to use, and as an alternative to using wood in the funeral industry? And what if we leveraged the narrative, the poetry of the story of the mushroom, of life, death, decay, and transformation, and use that as part of our grieving ritual?
Let's take a step back. So for listeners that aren't familiar with what mycelium is, you have mushrooms, you have fungi. What is mycelium? How does it fit into the overall ecosystem here?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Adam. So mycelium is the root structure of the fungi. So if you can imagine a tree has roots, and the root system is where the tree gets its nutrients. And then, you have the tree or whatever plant you have, and then you have the fruit. So mycelium is the root structure of the mushroom. The mushroom is the fruit. Mycelium is the largest organism on the planet. It is essentially the Earth's decomposer. So anything that dies on the Earth's surface, or anything really that dies, any organic material, will eventually be decomposed by mycelium. It's a natural, it's the Earth's detoxifier. It detoxifies what's in the air. It detoxifies what's in the soil. It neutralizes everything and transforms it into nutrients that get passed throughout the ecosystem. It's been called it's been likened to the World Wide Web, the Wood Wide Web. It transfers information. That's its role. And
So
nutrients.
it sounds like it's almost like this superstructure. If it's transferring information, if it's decomposing things, if it's spreading throughout the soil below our feet, how can we harness mycelium then to turn it into a structure? What does that process look like?
Okay, so if you can imagine pouring concrete into a formwork, right? Concrete is liquid. It takes the form of whatever volume you give it, and it hardens into that form. If you can imagine the inverse of that, so you have a form. It can be anything. It could be a vase. It could be a coffin. It could be anything. And so you first prepare a substrate. So we use agricultural waste, and that we use mostly hemp, but it can be a variety of different agricultural waste, anything organic that is rich in nutrients. And we inoculate that with mushroom, so with a mushroom spore. So it can be reishi, it can be oyster, it can be turkey tail. So we inoculate the substrate with a mushroom spore, and then that inoculated substrate, we then place it in the formwork, and the mycelium grows into that form. So rather than pouring the material and just waiting for it to harden, we actually wait for the mycelium to grow. So it feeds on the agricultural waste, and it takes the form, it creates its web, its vast network of white thread-like, what are called hyphae. And this is what creates the sort of dense webbing, netting of the mycelium coffin.
Is it hard? Is it soft while it's growing? Do you have to dry it out? Is it a permanent structure? I have so many questions.
Yes. So once it grows into its form, it turns white. So it transforms, if you can imagine, like wood chips, right? Because that's essentially what it looks like. You put wood chips into a form, and then the mycelium grows and feeds on the wood chips, transforming that into just sort of a dense white material. You can almost think of like foam, like white foam. That's a polystyrene. This is sort of what it's most similar to. It's very dense. It's very soft. It has a little bit of a spongy texture. And then once it's done growing, then we dry it out. Because what we don't want to happen is, and what will ultimately happen is, if we just let it grow forever and ever, or actually for not that long, it will start to fruit. It will start to fruit and fruit mushrooms. We don't want that. We want to stop its growth so that we're just left with the hardened mycelium structure.
How long does the process take if you're going to grow, I guess, a full-size coffin equivalent for somebody?
It takes just a little over a week to grow a coffin.
Okay, so then you grow it, then you have to dry it. How long does that process take?
Less than a day.
Okay. Now, I'm imagining a coffin that has hinges that opens up. If you've grown this structure, how are you opening it? How are you closing it? Do you have to cut it? Are there hinges installed?
So I will say we don't have hinges. There is no metal. There is nothing in this coffin that is not entirely biodegradable, that will decompose at relatively the same rate. So we're looking at something that's decomposing within 30 to 45 days.
Wow.
And then in terms of the how does it open, we're designing that. We're designing that system. We're almost finished with our prototype. So when that's ready, you'll see.
Okay.
Very
Okay.
excited to share that. Yeah.
Okay. So keep posted. Maybe by the time this episode launches, we'll see the final product. Now, you're also informed by your background. You're the co-founder of a Jewish eco-cemetery. Has your Jewish tradition informed your thinking around burial and ritual, or do you think these are just two parts of your life that are working in tandem and in parallel, side by side?
That's a really interesting question. I think the notion of spirituality definitely plays a role, right? When we talk about life and death, we're really getting to the essence of what it's all about and coming to terms with life's transitions. And absolutely, I think that my understanding around Jewish burial has informed how I think about transition, and definitely around death and the rituals that we carry into our funeral traditions. So the idea that we are of the earth and we go back to the earth, that's a fundamental Jewish belief and a custom that we maintain. So I'll say that for those who don't know, all Jewish burials are green burials. They do not use any toxins and any unnatural materials. There's no embalming, no chemicals. It's a completely natural burial process. And the idea is that we return to the soil, and our body, our nutrients go back into feeding the ecosystem.
And it seems like that's really what you're trying to hit on the website. And you're talking about the coffin, even pet coffins now, the earth urn, the pet urn, the natural cotton burial shrouds. Ritual seems like it is really driving. It's even in the name of the company, Urth Ritual, not just Earth. What do people not understand about those rituals, not understand about green burial? What do they get wrong?
Yeah, I think that in our highly secularized society, I think that we've lost our connection to why we do things. We've lost some of our connection to meaning. And I will say there's nothing wrong with cremation. I mean, it's not as sustainable as green burial, obviously, but there can be ritual in everything if you do it with intention. And so what Urth Ritual is really trying to push is this idea of intentionality, of giving families agency, giving the individual agency in their death. And so what we are trying to do is in part bring intention, help people find meaning in death, in transition, in the materials, in the objects that they use to confront death and dying. And ultimately, my deepest hope is that what we learn from death and dying, and the rituals that we bring into this process and into our grieving process, ultimately, can inform the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
That we approach life, every aspect of life, with this sort of wisdom of death, of allowing the natural cycle to unfold.
Do you think that the wisdom of death is changing? Do you think the conversation around death is changing, especially around younger generations or people that are our age, 25 to 50, not the boomers that are beginning to hit their 70s and 80s?
It's a really interesting question. I think that, yeah, like I mentioned, I think maybe the older generation still has this connection to tradition.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe still sort of superstition around it, or maybe it can be a lot of things. But I do think that, like I said, I think that we've lost something in our sort of modern rejection of tradition, of custom, of religion. And I want to be clear, this isn't religious. This Urth Ritual is not trying to push any religious agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about cultivating meaning in the dying process and in death. And I think that I think that the younger generation is catching on. I think that the younger generation wants meaning. They want death to mean something. They want their death or their loved ones to have a death that is more purposeful, that is more sustainable than the alternative. So I do think it's changing. And I think that it starts with giving people a sense of agency, that they can choose the kind of death that they want.
And it's an agency that is great for the planet itself. I mean, on the website, you talk about having a carbon negative approach where each coffin is absorbing up to 30 kilograms of CO2, which is as much as planting a tree. You're not using varnishes and glues and chemicals, which have production costs, not to mention the shipping costs around the world. It's water and energy efficient. So if you look at some of the alternatives out there, whether it be shipping again, whether it be cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, which is water cremation, everything has a moment to it. Everything has an impact. And it seems like your approach is really trying to help people exit with a bonus, a benefit. So it's something that actually helps others and leaves the planet in a better place than how they came in a strange way. That resonates with me. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of other people. But I guess the question is, how are you doing this? Where are you doing this? Like, are you growing these coffins in Brooklyn?
No, I've partnered with a phenomenal team that are really the experts in cultivating this material. So we're collaborating and designing and engineering the products together.
What are some of the other uses that they're working on that are outside of the space? Because I imagine that you're taking your architectural background with their product and I guess raw materials, we'll call it that, their experience and expertise, putting it together to create something new. What else is mycelium being used for that's pretty neat and innovative that the company can bring to the table for you?
Yeah. So it's interesting because we started this conversation with you asking about my architectural background. And that is what it's being used for. It's being used, it's a material pursuit, right? So it's first understanding the material, first understanding what is the material good at? Well, it's good at fire resistance and it's good at, water resistance and insulation and acoustic, it has acoustic properties. And so it's being used in acoustic paneling. It's being used as insulation. It's being used for furniture, for light fixtures. It's being used for packaging. It has all kinds of uses. We are going to see mycelium come up, and it's being used in surfboards. Mycelium is about to have its moment. It's sort of right at the beginning of the sort of material innovation, but we will begin to see this material, I think, in many facets of our lives.
So as it begins to spread into different industries, people get more familiar with it. That's great for you, great for your approach in the company. What do you have to do to convince funeral directors, consumers that this is a real opportunity? It's something that they should consider. Do you go direct to consumers? Are you selling into funeral homes? What do you think your rollout's going to be?
That's a good question. We're still trying to find the best way. We want to reach families. We want our message to reach families. I think that happens just in the nature of the industry. I think that happens through funeral directors mostly. I think it happens through education, through awareness. Our mission is more than, just to educate people about our product, but it's really about developing death awareness as a mindfulness tool, as a way to live more intentional, meaningful, purposeful lives.
So I'll finish with one hard question. I'll put you on the spot. You can definitely punt and decline if you don't want to answer. For consumers that are interested in buying an Urth Ritual coffin when it's available, when do you think that'll be and how much do you think it'll cost?
Yeah, I think we'll be ready for pre-sales in about a month and a half to 2 months.
So likely by the time this podcast is live, you'll be able to be in the pre-sale, range. That's great.
Yes. And we anticipate them retailing for $3,600.
All right, so
give or take.
with...
It's still early to say, but somewhere in that range.
That's comparable with a lot of coffins on the market, so it's a good spot for it. All right. If you want to learn more about Urth Ritual, if you want to learn more about mushroom shrouds, mycelium coffins, everything related, we've got an information hub Probably even this podcast will show up on the hub as well. Now, Urth Ritual is helping people reimagine death as a return. It's beautiful, it's intentional, it's deeply ecological. Now, if you're someone who's planning ahead or someone that's just beginning to think about your end, Jordanna's work invites us to leave a world a little better than how we found it. You can learn more and connect with Jordanna at urthritual.com. You can follow her online, social media as well, and get your dose of death-positive design that's both grounded and gorgeous. Jordanna, it's great to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Buried in Work podcast. Remember, you can save 10% on our estate preparation package and games with code podcast10 at buriedinwork.com.